president, who looks like he was just exhumed, just in case, has now let slip the details of his plot to steal the midterms. His new demand of active troops at Fort Bragg, you have to vote for us, and the Valentine's Day words of his succubus, Kristi Noem, about making sure Trump has the right people voting, electing only the right leaders. Those are
Good
the
morning,
highlights.
Josh.
Those
Good
are the
morning.
pressure points, the tips of the spear of the latest Trump coup conspiracy. Before I lay out every stop on the Trump treason train for you in detail, let me cut to the chase and to the solution. Because what Trump has already revealed about his plans should tell us how to construct our plans. It is growing increasingly apparent to me that while the whole thing could easily collapse of its own weight and its own illegality, we are where we are because we have believed our norms and laws would hold in the past, and frankly, they have not. Because most of our leaders are self-interested, cowardly crap shacks. Happily, others are made of sterner stuff, or they have jobs that require sterner stuff. When Trump moves to seize ballots from this election, from 2026, judges will have to do what judges did not do when Trump moved to seize ballots from 2020 in Georgia earlier this year. They will have to say, these are entirely different things, bozo. And nothing gives the federal government the right to seize ballots or ballot boxes or close voting places from the current election. Some judges, in fact, may have to say much more than that. They may have to say nothing gives the federal government the right to postpone elections because of fictional, imaginary, foreign interference or national security concerns. And simply trotting out something dramatic, think George W. Bush's convenient bin Laden video from 4 days before the 2004 election, or imagine some sort of Nicolas Maduro or other bogeyman confession that he or they or his mom or your mom or space lasers or somebody had long since launched a project to fix these midterms. Imagine Trump saying this with 10,000 ICE goons outside the judge's court. The judges would be the first line of defense, but sadly, they may not be the last. And this is where what Trump said at Fort Bragg the other night comes in, and where Pete, Secretary of Scott Hegseth's attempt to demote Mark Kelly, and U.S. Attorney for Boxed Wine Pirro's attempt to prosecute Kelly, and the others, where those things come in. Somebody has clearly explained to Trump that Mark Kelly and Slotkin and the others are goddamned right, that military members are not only entitled to refuse illegal orders, they are constitutionally obligated to refuse illegal orders. If they do not refuse illegal orders, they can go to jail, and that includes illegal orders from Trump or Hegseth or General Raisin Kane. Think of him as an actual raisin, like one of the old California raisins. It defangs him a little bit. So Trump is now trying to win line-level service members, the line guys, the youngsters, the ones Trump thinks are the suckers and losers, trying to win them with some vague idea in his mind that if the commissioned officers and the generals and the joint chiefs are told to shoot up a voting precinct in Chicago and they refuse, well, the raw troops from Fort Bragg will do it anyway, out of loyalty to Trump, and might even shoot the officers if Trump asks them to, like this is the Soviet Revolution as it played out on their Western Front against the Germans in 1917. It is absolutely possible that the midterms could come down to the Joint Chiefs of Staff actually standing up on their hind legs like something out of the government overthrow movie 7 Days in May. And that's 2 references to the movie 7 Days in May in 2 podcasts, and that by itself is a bad sign. It is absolutely possible that the names of the people Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin were actually talking to in the video they and the 4 House members made will become very familiar to us in October and November and December. Names like General George and Admiral Franchetti and Commandant Smith. And yes, in the wildest of political science fiction scenarios, they might all have to get together and lock General Kane that would be the California Raisin guy, lock General Kane in a room somewhere while they make sure the personnel under their command do not seize ballot boxes or begin to turn us into a military dictatorship, and do not start shooting civilians. And Trump does not pop out of a bunker wearing his special new uniform with the big hat personally designed and gifted to him by Kim Jong-un. It cannot be said too many times. There is no future for Trump and these scumbags around him. Rubio, Vance, Stephen Miller, Noem, Hegseth, Patel, Gabbard, Kushner, Trump's two idiot sons. There is no future for any of them if the Democrats win the House and the Senate. I'd argue there is virtually no future for any of them if the Democrats just win the House. For Trump, the midterms are not the future of his agenda and his policies. For his minions, this is not the future of their plans or their money. For Trump, the midterms are life and death, his. He either gains control of this country permanently through the rest of his life, or virtually permanently, or he will die in prison. The Supreme Court immunity decision about presidents, great, good for you. Won't mean shit with a democratic mechanism in place to add just 4 seats to the Supreme Court, or 14. Now, it is erasing way too much important detail, buffering down the pointy parts too much to say that everybody traveling with Trump down this seditious road that he has taken faces similar inescapable fates. But it's goddamn close. You think Pete Hegseth and his war crimes can survive Special Prosecutor Dan Goldman? How long would it take to put Trump Jr. and his brother Idiot Trump in jail for life? Or Kushner, if he hasn't fled to Saudi Arabia by then? This is it right here. And the most important way to prepare for it is to remember that Trump tried a coup on January 6th. And he tried a coup when he tried to get 2 sitting senators and 4 congressmen indicted like a week ago. And depending on your definition, he has moved towards trying at least 3 other coups. A very thorough analysis of Trump's move towards manipulating the midterms states reassuringly that judges would doubtlessly say that seizing 2026 ballots is not the same as seizing 2020 ballots. And as I said at the beginning, I agree with that. What it leaves out is the fact that Trump's response is not going to be to say, "Ah, shucks, I guess I lost. I'll go to jail now." It is far more likely to be to order some friendly general to arrest those judges and seize those ballots anyway and shoot anybody who gets in the way. If we remember this at all times, we increase our likelihood of surviving this. I hope I haven't alarmed you. Actually, I hope I have goddamned alarmed you. Now, before I review what Trump has done in these last few weeks, just this year, all of which confirms he is going to try to use some combination of military and ICE and Border Patrol to steal the midterms, to fix the election. Let me take a quick breath and permit you to take a quick breath if you have any breath left. I was just reading in on Senator Slotkin of Michigan, and I need to inquire about this, and maybe I should have inquired first before bringing it up. But I knew that Senator Slotkin of Michigan was a fellow Cornell alum, and in fact a fellow Cornell Agriculture and Life Sciences alum. But what I did not know was that she graduated in the year 1998.
Whoa, okay.
Cornell does not have a commencement address. It does not hand out phony degrees. It's one of the things I'm actually proud of. It has a convocation speech given by somebody chosen by the graduating class each year, given the day before graduation, indoors. And why anybody goes to it, I do not know. What we did the day before graduation, particularly if it was nice out, was the same thing we did most of the week before graduation.
Hey, honey.
However, In 1998, Elissa Slotkin's graduation year, the convocation address got its largest attendance in like a decade. And between a third and a half of the graduates actually went into Barton Hall and attended and listened to this guy. So if Elissa Slotkin went to her convocation in her graduation year 1998, the speaker she heard was me. Okay, back to the apocalypse now, already in progress. This is the checklist to keep in mind at all times of what Trump has already done, the conspiracy plot points he has already let slip, the stuff he should have kept quiet about, but he has happily told us about because he can't keep his effing mouth shut. It is our number one advantage. The number one advantage for the anti-Trump forces is Trump. The timeline starts with Trump seizing Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd. I still think Maduro reappears in this somehow. Then it's sending ICE to invade Minnesota, terrorize Minneapolis, and underreported, terrorize rural Minnesota. And then, of course, murder Renee Good on January 7th and Alex Preddy on January 24th. And they may not have actually planned murders in advance, but if they did, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Because the point of ICE going to Minnesota was to intimidate and to practice for the midterms, intimidate the midterm voters. And, of course, express the hatred and the racism at the heart of MAGA. Now, for all the blowback this would ultimately direct against Trump, I mean, he lost. Half of the people in charge of this got fired or demoted, and he had to withdraw. He had to run like the little shit he is. It did temporarily give Trump what he needs about the midterms. The midterm part of ICE's invasion of Minnesota was a Trump victory because it allowed Pam Bondi the means with which to try to blackmail Governor Tim Walz. Walz wanted ICE out. Bondi wrote him. All he had to do was give the Department of Justice Minnesota's voter rolls. That not only obviously would give Bondi, the escapee from Last Call at the Dive Bar, access to an entire state's voter rolls, but it would also give the veneer of precedent for Bondi to try this again elsewhere. Now we have the means, the quote, Save America Act, which is actually the Save Trump from Dying in Prison Act. The Save Trump from Dying in Prison Act requires states to give their voter rolls to the Department of Homeland Security. That's Kristi Noem, who doesn't have an honest bone in her body, or an original one. That passed the House. It will almost certainly not pass the Senate, but not to worry, Trump says he will enforce it anyway via executive order. Now, how do you do that if it isn't law? Well, you do it with the military, or with ICE, or you send Gabbard, or Noem, or a guy named Thomas Albus. Not Albus Dumbledore, Thomas Albus. Or you do what Trump did when he went on Dan Bongino's podcast. Republicans, he said, should, quote, take over the voting, unquote, in at least 15 places, unquote. Somebody told him that. How the hell do you do it? Well, executive orders that look like the Save America.
Feels like a dream, feels like magic.
Unless a soldier is pointing
Now
a
I
gun at your
believe
head
I
and
can.
Fort Mill Chili is party chili. Pour on America's favorite chili.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, y'all? Good morning. Good Monday. Good morning. Monday morning. It's Cup of Joe, Listening News Hour. This is your host, Cooking with JW. And it is Cup of Joe time and meds time. Thank you all for coming in and listening. This is what I do in the mornings to start my day, see what's happening out there and what's going on. and having a cup of Joe, and ooh, it's really good this morning, y'all. Really good. I will be starting my morning soon. I just wanted to do a little newsy, a little listening to, Let's see what's going on.
Timeline has overlap, so a clean chronological timeline is impossible. So there's a lot of overlap here, but the next standout date is January 28th, when using apparently falsified documents, the DOJ's Star Chamber got its hands on the Georgia 2020 ballots while Bird Brain DNI Tulsi Gabbard stood there phoning people back at the ranch and making another appointment to get that skunk hair thing going in her head. This puts some meat on the skeleton that is the paranoid ramblings of the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri, Thomas Albus, who has been designated by Barroom Bondi to be the point weasel on attempts to fabricate election interference or national security threats, or here comes Nicolas Maduro, I told you. If you don't know this Albus shit, he is attached at the hip to the idiot Ed Martin. Idiot Ed. And Martin mainlines to Cleta Mitchell and Sidney Powell.
Oh, shit.
After the 2020 coup collapse,
The conspiracy
Cleta Mitchell
theorists.
vanished. Powell confessed, apologized, and evidently went right back to work doing the same stuff. The attempt to demote Senator Kelly, the next stage in this you know about, Trump's public announcement that Kelly had committed crimes making that video punishable by death. You know about that too. Jeanine Pirro's complete shutout trying to indict Kelly, you know about. The wooing of the military, Fort Bragg the other night, you know about. The seeming malapropisms from Plastic Woman Gnome about making sure only the right people vote for the right people,
Plastic
you know
Woman.
about. I do think hearing the last two comments from Trump and Gnome, I think you should hear them again. I think they will help you remember this as a mantra to not live by, but to make sure we don't have to live by.
Fort Bragg, we have your name back. We got your name back from the radical left. The radical left is not happy about it. It's another reason you have to vote for
God,
us. They'll
it's
change
so
it back to
fucking
whatever it might be.
annoying.
What exactly makes you think that if the generals, if the Joint Chiefs actually do their duty to this nation and shut Trump down when he tries to alter the midterms, that he won't try to alter the generals? That he won't go back to Fort Bragg and try to get all those idiots sitting behind him to grab their guns and go help him shoot the commies?
What was
Ever
that?
seen the Stephen King movie, The Dead Zone?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think Christopher Walken has had a vision of President Martin Sheen starting a first strike nuclear war. The missiles are flying, hallelujah, hallelujah. I mean, I know Martin Sheen. But when the generals in the movie will not use their fingerprints on the device to help launch the missiles to destroy Russia and the world, President Marty Sheen threatens to cut off their hands, put their fingers on the device anyway.
Yeah.
But if you can stomach it, I think it would be a good idea to watch that movie again.
Mhm.
And 7 Days in May, they're both great films. And the HBO miniseries, The Plot Against America,
I didn't see
And
7 Days in
the
May.
film
I
version of
watched it.
Sinclair
Look that
Lewis's
up.
It Can't Happen Here, the great movie starring Lionel Barrymore and Basil Rathbone. Oh, yeah, that's right. 90 years ago, the U.S. government actually got the filming of that overthrow the government movie. That Here's Fascism, It Can't Happen Here. The government actually got that movie canceled. Anyway, watch what you can, presuming you can still get 7 Days in May and The Plot Against America and The Dead Zone. Because the one nice thing about this deep weed political science fiction stuff is there are surprisingly few new ideas out there. And it'll be much easier when Trump tries some of this and you say, hey, wait. And you do that, you know, that meme with the guy pointing, DiCaprio pointing at the TV. You do that meme that, wait, I know that. That's in 7 Days in May. I know what to do now. Because, like the best cliche in the world, at the moment anyway, goes, just because you're paranoid, America, that doesn't mean Trump's not out to get you.
Oh my God.
A quick Epstein update. Casey Wasserman is selling his Wasserman Talent Agency. He thinks that'll be enough. Just because Chappell Roan and Abby Wambach quit his agency rather than remain associated with a guy so implicated in the Epstein files. Flirtatious emails with Ghislaine Maxwell. Oh my God, did you also, Pam Bondi? Pam Bondi hit on me once.
Ooh,
Outside the men's room at the PBS station in Tampa.
you
20
lying.
years ago. I'll let you know when I get over it. Wasserman, anyway, back to his problems, thinks he can stay on as head of the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee. He can't. I only know him a little bit. Casey, you can't. If you do, what it means is the LA Olympics will grow increasingly tied to Jeffrey Epstein every day a little bit more until the opening ceremonies, which are on July 14th, 2028. I got bad news for you, Case. You ain't gonna make it. Meanwhile, the chief legal officer, Catherine Rumler, is out at Goldman Sachs. Oh, Epstein files. Brad Karp, chair of the Vichy law firm of Paul Weiss Ripken and Epstein files. He's gone too. In the UK, the government is investigating, prosecuting the man who until last fall was its ambassador to Trump and the United States, Lord Mandelson, who is eyebrow high in the files. They may prosecute him and the brother of the king for turning over secret financial documents to Jeffrey Epstein on top of everything else.
Ooh.
The advisor who got the prime minister elected, who also said to the prime minister, you should make Mandelson the ambassador. He got fired, and a media guy got fired, and the prime minister got close to being challenged. It was like an hour or two in there where it looked like he wasn't going to make it. He swerved out of the way, at least for now. Here, Howard Lutnick, who said he cut off Epstein like 20 years ago, or maybe it was 2,000 years ago. And it turns out he visited Epstein Island, but just for lunch, and started a new business with Epstein in 2014, like a decade after he said he sworn him off and was disgusted. Yeah. He's still Trump's lying Secretary of Bullshit Commerce because one very simple reason. Trump is the CEO of the Epstein cover-up.
I think Oberman lied. He said shit. Pam Bundy tried to hit on him some years ago. Oh, Keith, you ain't all that. Man, come on.
Once in a while, I begin to suspect that this podcast will eventually turn into a media criticism podcast. Every once in a while, I suspect you believe that this podcast has already turned into such a podcast about the media more than about politics or Trump or anything else. Because if we stop and think about it, beyond the natural problems that we have had with what we all thought were laws and that turned out just to be traditions and things that men of goodwill would observe to keep the form of government here largely democratic. Apart from that overarching problem that has led us here to the precipice of eternal damnation, the second biggest collapse, the second weakest guardrail, the guardrail that second most turned out to be made out of oatmeal and paper mache, is the media. There has been another array of disasters in the media in the past week, from CBS News, or what was formerly CBS News, from CNN again, from a man I used to work for named Andy Lack at NBC, formerly of NBC, though they fired him twice, and from Jake effing Tapper. I got into it very briefly to the point where people were responding to this by saying, we're going to get the popcorn now. Olbermann's going at Tapper again. I just saw this on Threads and responded to it, and I believe it was misunderstood. So let me clarify this, and then let me see if I can carve a few new holes in Jake Tapper and explain that the reason I'm carving a hole in him is not for the reason that everybody thinks I am. Jake Tapper the other day posted the following: "Dark days. Hope you're hanging in there." That was the entire post. I will give him credit. Nowhere here does it say that his book about Joe Biden's mental health is now available at popular prices. He just says, "Dark days, hope you're hanging in there," to which I responded, "Hope you understand you contributed to the darkness. Maybe you should quit your bullshit show, your bullshit channel, and go atone for a year. Work at
Damn.
a hospice or a charity. Make up for how you helped Trump, asshole."
Ooh, damn, kid.
It was assumed that my reference there to Tapper was about the book. It really was not, and I will explain that in a moment. In point of fact, the idea that Joe Biden's acuity should be addressed was a valid one. The timing was wrong. The way Jake Tapper did it by debasing his network himself, shilling this book on the air the way he did, like a Bill O'Reilly redux, these were all humiliations. These were all disqualifications from the journalism business. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the point. The point is what Jake Tapper did not do.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake Tapper has again underscored the fact that the pivotal moment in the 2024 presidential election was at the debate between Biden and Trump, and it had nothing to do with as bad as Biden did during that. It was Jake effing Tapper's fault because he put himself ahead of this country.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at Joe Biden's mental acuity, consistency, there is no question that it should have been addressed in 2022, and America would have been better off if Joe Biden had said, "I will be what I said I was going to be, a transitional president. I am going to get out of the way of the next Democratic candidate." There is no question it would have been better if that had happened, and there is no question that he should have done it, and there is no question that it should have been raised more often than it was in the media by everybody, including me.
Mm-hmm.
What Jake Tapper did, of course, was second guess the thing.
Mm-hmm.
While ignoring what is also unquestionable, there has never been a minute in the last 50 years in which Joe Biden has been one millionth as mentally uncertain or as unreliable as Donald Trump has been.
Hell yeah.
At Donald Trump's best minute. Donald Trump is insane. Joe Biden is momentarily confused. This, however, did not sell books. So Jake Tapper whored himself out, and the results are, well, they are what we are in right now. And yet, my major complaint about Jake Tapper, and the reason I suggested he should quit his bullshit
Good
show
morning,
and go work in a
Sochipo.
hospice or a charity and
How
make
you
it
doing?
up to Earth, is not about the book, even though he sat there selling it during the middle of his newscast for the last year. My complaint with Jake Tapper remains the 2024 Biden-Trump debate. It's not about the Biden book that he went on his little Jake Tapper newscast and shilled this book the way Bill O'Reilly used to shill his books on his shows on Fox, or some woman selling fake diamonds sells the fake diamonds and shills them on QVC. It's embarrassing, it's humiliating, but if you're incapable of being embarrassed, if you have no core, no soul, and you cannot make a fool of yourself because you just don't care, have fun. My complaint remains his role in the Biden-Trump debate in 2024, which was the turning point in that campaign and the turning point that led to the late dropout of Biden from the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
And Jake Tapper has a huge double-digit percentage responsibility for what happened.
You
Because
do.
Jake
That
Tapper,
monster bitch.
moderator of that debate, refused.
Write a book on Donald
refused
Trump's
to
fucking
fact
demise,
check
his dementia.
Trump's three-digit lie total.
Yeah.
When ABC did a debate, they fact-checked Trump's lies. They didn't have a problem doing that. David Muir didn't have a problem doing that. Jake Tapper was more interested in being on TV than telling the truth. He
Yeah.
is not a newsman. He has never been a newsman. He is a TV figure who has befouled himself. He has shit his pants on TV time and time again.
Damn, Keith.
Perhaps that is why he has sided with Trump.
Damn,
Those
Keith.
were the rules you were offered. for
Jake
doing
gonna
that
come
debate.
after your
Jake,
ass.
stop whoring yourself. What are you going to say to yourself in the last minutes of your life? When the question becomes in your mind, did I do the wrong thing then? And you say, yes, I could not have done worse. If you are offered an untenable, unacceptable
Damn.
series of circumstances, you turn them down. And Jake, you didn't. You're a prostitute. Now,
You're a hooker.
fit in perfectly. They're looking for a new host of the CBS Evening News. Presumably, they're looking for
Jake
another
Tapper,
new host
hooker.
of the CBS Evening News. Perhaps
Ooh.
it should be Jake Tapper. CBS is imploding, and its new anchor, Tony Jacopel, is going down faster than Titanic.
Damn.
It is now unquestionably and solely a propaganda outlet, and very few of the key people at CBS News are even pretending otherwise. There is no question that there are plenty of broadcasters and reporters who are still there. They are dropping steadily, however, and I would guess that they will all be out of there within 2 years. Barry
Damn.
Weiss has proved herself to be a very stupid three-card Monty operator who may be fooling herself into thinking that she's some sort of journalist. If she was a journalist, she's now sold out journalism, so she can pretend she's a big-time executive, and evidently she's not much of that either. And there are plenty of people under her at CBS willing to sell their souls too, like the unprincipled anchor DeCopel and the amoral, and I have never understood for a moment the appeal this man had. And when he was hired by CBS, I said him, and every time I have seen him on TV since, I have said him, and he's doing it still. And he is out there rooting for Barry Weiss and
Oh,
carrying
God.
her shit for her in a plastic bag, or possibly in his own mouth.
Oh my God.
Robert Costa it was who revealed that there had been an interview done with Stephen A. Smith for CBS Sunday.
Oh.
CBS Sunday, which used to be perhaps the most respected and most enjoyable news long-form show. in
Stephen A.
television.
Smith.
I include all of them
A
in this.
fucking
There was
undercover
a quality
coon.
to this show in which they largely stayed away from controversial subjects and yet managed to provide interesting and informative and accurate information, and that is gone. It is now a staging ground for Stephen A. Shit. I will confess to you, Costa quotes Smith as saying on the program which broadcast yesterday, I'm giving strong consideration to being on that debate stage for 2027
Ooh.
and running for the Democratic nomination.
Damn.
No, for president.
What?
I've got this year coming up, 2026, to think about it, to study, to know the issues.
Oh, Keith.
Well,
Come
at
on.
least Stephen A. is admitting that he doesn't know the issues, hasn't studied, and hasn't thought about it. He just likes the idea of being
Hi,
president.
Ellen. Good morning.
Stephen is too stupid to understand that he is a stalking horse. We've been through this before. I'm not going to go through all the arguments and the whole Stephen A. Smith story. He is wonderfully talented at killing time in sports broadcasts, but most sports people will tell you that whereas he kind of knows the NBA, anything outside of basketball, he's just making it up as he goes along. And now you're going to ask him about public policy issues that he does not understand. This is the man, after all, who jumped right into the middle of the ICE shooting, the first one in Minnesota, of Renee Good, and said that it was kind of unfortunate that Renee Good died, but the ICE officers were completely justified in killing her.
Damn.
That was his starting position, and now he's going to know the issues later, and he will be portrayed doing this on CBS. And don't think that this program yesterday would be the only time you're going to see this, because he's a stalking horse. He is there and too stupid to understand solely to siphon off votes from the would-be Democratic candidate in 2028 or those from other parties who might oppose J.D. Vance or whoever the Republicans will get, or if they actually try Trump for a third term. They targeted Smith's ego, and it's a pretty big target. And Stephen A. Smith will not know that he's Bobby Kennedy. Just like Cornel West. I don't think he knows who any of those people are. He is being used,
Of
and
course.
CBS has declared that it will be his
The
platform.
undercover coon.
And there's more. As if this were not enough, there was Tony DeCopel's town hall announcement.
Oh
On
no.
March 14th, he will host a town hall with J.D. Vance.
Mm.
And one of the topics is going to be the 2028 presidential campaign with just J.D. Vance. How is that news? It's not. It's advertising.
Yes.
And what's more, the title of this Barry Weiss series of town halls is CBS Things That Matter.
Oh, Keith, they gonna come after your
On
ass.
February 9th, Tony DeCopel already, once again, put a hole in whatever reputation he had as a newsman at some point in his past, when he announced on their newscast, the CBS, quote, evening, quote, news,
Mm.
ICE arrested nearly 400,000 people in President Trump's first year in office. Of those, nearly 60% had criminal histories, meaning charges or convictions, including many for serious crimes such as drug trafficking and child pornography, and several thousand cases involving rape or murder. Those are some pretty heavy statistics. That's a very important story. And it is, to some degree, surprising that you're probably hearing this for the first time. 400,000 people arrested. Of those, 60% had criminal histories, drug trafficking, child pornography, 7,000 rapes and murders.
They lied.
The books were cooked.
No.
Trump is not right. Trump is not dragging off only the violent criminals, the worst of the worst. The number had been rewritten. The facts had been changed into what Tony DeCopel read to present a fake picture, to
Hmm.
falsify reality.
Yes.
CBS had its own online report on its website, which has not yet been corrupted by Barry Weiss and Tony DeCopel and the others. The CBS story, using the same data from the same sources, reads, less than 14% of those arrested by ICE in Trump's first year back in office had violent criminal records, document shows. So between the actual number, which is less than 14%, and this dire picture of nearly 60% of criminal histories, somebody changed the facts from the facts
Oh.
to lies that DeCopel promptly.
60%. You knew that was a fucking lie. Them motherfuckers always.
Something that was obtained by
They
the New
live
York
in
Times
another
and
fucking
posted
reality.
A goodbye cruel world note from a producer at the CBS Evening News from a woman named Alicia Hasty, who had been there apparently for 4 years, and I will not read this in its entirety, but some of it is of great value. Alicia Hasty's farewell email to her colleagues. There has been a sweeping new vision prioritizing a break from traditional broadcast norms to embrace what has been described as heterodox journalism.
Mm.
The truth is that commitment to those people and the stories they have to tell is increasingly becoming impossible. Stories may instead be evaluated not just on their journalistic merit, but on whether they conform to a shifting set of ideological expectations, a dynamic that pressures producers and reporters to self-censor or avoid challenging narratives that might trigger backlash or unfavorable headlines. None of this detracts from the talent of all the journalists who remain at CBS News. You all produce thoughtful and important work even under different circumstances. That is precisely what makes this moment so heartbreaking. The very excellence we seek to sustain is hindered by fear and uncertainty. She continued. Walter Cronkite once said in response to critics, if that is what makes us liberals, so be it. Just as long as in reporting the news we adhere to the first ideals of good journalism, that news reports must be fair, accurate, and unbiased. Cronkite's idea is one of the best I've encountered. He understood that labels are inevitable, but standards are what matter. What defines journalism is not what critics call it, but whether it remains faithful to those principles. I've always taken comfort in the belief that if we hold fast to those first ideals, trust follows, but those ideals cannot stand on their own. They require vigilance, they require courage. And there you have it. At CBS News, a woman producer who was trying to uphold the principles of Walter Cronkite quit, left, was forced out, could not do her job because she wanted to do actual journalism. A fraud named Kopel, who once said that his newscast would be far more transparent than Walter Cronkite's, he stays.
Fuck.
It is a very sad thing to say as somebody who grew up on CBS News and aspired to work for it and did. But unfortunately, CBS News will have to be discontinued. There is no way to repair the damage that has been done in these brief months by the Ellisons and this witch, Barry Weiss. And lastly, just to prove that the collapse of media in this country did not begin recently,
No.
Andy Lack has appeared out of nowhere, former president of NBC News, twice, and to his credit, the man who looked at me somehow in 1997 and saw a guy who could do news programming on then the almost brand new network MSNBC. I don't know that he got anything else right. There have been times since then when I'm not sure that he got that right. But Andy Lack apparently popped up on Facebook, and this was posted by Jeremy Barr, formerly of the Washington Post and now of the Guardian. And I will read this in its entirety because I forget which of the various cliches this is, but it's one of them. I think, Lack writes, it was in 2018 at the Vanity Fair Oscar party in LA that Jeff Bezos confronted me with a simple question. When are you guys going to stand up to Trump? I was at NBC at the time and a bit
Wait,
startled.
what the
What
fuck?
do you mean? I said.
What? Why the fuck he don't stand up to Trump? Bezos, bitch. Oh my God.
He was in my face. Come on, you're letting him off the hook. He was steely-eyed. I pushed back. I don't think that's quite right. Before I said anything more, he shook his head and moved on. I thought a lot about that encounter recently. When Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post for
Yeah.
a meager $250 million, it seemed like a bargain basement deal, Lack continues, and he would be the perfect new owner, ushering one of the great newspapers into the digital age like no one else could. My best friends at the Post, including the legendary Bob Woodward, were hopeful and excited. Here we are now, bewildered and pissed off at the arrogance of the fourth richest man in the world, tearing the paper apart, firing more than 300 people with
Yeah.
his insanely stupid leadership. Go figure. Peggy Noonan's column over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal, A Lament for the Washington Post, and Tina Brown's bafflement with Bezos on her Substack, Fresh Hell, yesterday are must-reads. Before I address Andy Lack, I did want to mention that you just had a conversation with Andy Lack for my two tenures, or my one tenure working for him, and the second time when I actually talked to him about returning to work for him. Andy Lack exists solely to drop names. Vanity Fair Oscar party, Jeff Bezos again, my best friends at the Post, including legendary Bob Woodward, Peggy Noonan, Tina Brown. That's right. There is one comforting thing now, kind of a funny thing about Andy Lack and his dotage. He doesn't know when people will be impressed by his name dropping and will simply go, who the hell's Peggy Noonan? In any event, what I found so entertaining about this posting from Lack and his rage that Jeff Bezos once criticized NBC for not doing enough against Trump was that apparently this confrontation with Bezos, which he cites to being, I guess, early 2018, would have followed by a little bit more than 2 years of the afternoon of Thursday, October 29th, 2015, when Andy Lack, who had just been put back in charge of NBC News and MSNBC after the Brian Williams disaster, if you will remember that, offered me a new show on MSNBC. It was 4 years since I had left to go start my own program at Current after NBC had breached my contract and I walked away with all their money, and he was willing to admit that was a mistake and he wanted me to come back. However, the rule would be my new show could not include political commentary.
Ah. Nope. No. No, Bezos got a lot of fucking nerve to be in somebody FaceTime about, well, you gonna stand up to Trump. This bitch. Oh my God. What the fuck happened to him? Why he's not standing up to Trump? Ah, God. These motherfucking, the hypocrisy is the fucking, it's the worst. The fucking hypocrisy. Oh my God. He's sucking the dick. She's sucking Trump's dick every fucking day. And fucking Melania, fucking catastrophe. They cooked the books on that. Oh, child, I don't know. Yeah, I think that one got my goat there. That one got my goat, yo. Oh, it's somebody FaceTime when you gonna stand up to Trump. Yeah, and then you fucked over the Washington Post because you just put all that goddamn money in the disaster Melania. Stock you, right? That's shit. I don't know. I didn't spend $35 million more to fucking advertise that shit. Fuck off, dumbasses.
Especially not political commentary about the Republicans. Especially not political commentary about Donald Trump. He was willing to put me back and do the things, the kind of difficult things that would have been required inside NBC to put me back on the air at MSNBC. He was willing to do that, provided I didn't do the only thing I was good at. He explained to me that the special comments that I started to do at MSNBC in 2006, were the worst things that had ever been done. They destroyed MSNBC. They ruined MSNBC. What he meant by this was it ruined his vision of MSNBC, which of course he surrendered when he left NBC circa 2000. But he never got over the idea that he was right and I was wrong, and offering me a new job would prove to the whole world that he was right and I was wrong, and that the worst things that ever happened to MSNBC was letting Keith Olbermann do political commentaries instead of feature interviews. He wanted me to move to Los Angeles and have a co-host and do feature interviews for half an hour every night. And he said, we'll call it The Last Word. And I said, you have a show called The Last Word already with Lawrence O'Donnell. Not for much longer, I hope. In any event, he went on now to explain to me his initial reaction the first time he saw one of the special comments. I thought you were going crazy. I thought you were literally growing crazy on the air. I called up a bunch of my friends and I said, are you watching Olbermann? I think he's going to go crazy. We're all going to have to watch tomorrow night. See, he may actually go crazy on the air. I don't know what he might do to himself on the air. He's going crazy. He's absolutely lost control of himself. I did not say to Andy Lack at that point, did I approach your total lack of control in business meetings? Was I that crazy sounding? I didn't say that because I was trying to manipulate Andy Lack into offering me this show and thus triggering an offer for a different show at CNN. That was the real goal. That did not happen for a variety of reasons. So I just sat there and listened. And the other thing I did not say, and the one which part of it, which he said, okay, look, all of my friends were now going to tune in and watch you, and we were all watching to see if you're going to lose your mind. What I wanted to say, I was trying to find a way to say this and still not get him to not offer me that job, was that perhaps he'd missed the point here. That whatever he thought of the special comments, whatever he thought about my histrionics or my anger or my rage or telling President Bush to shut the hell up, he was watching, wasn't he? Andy Lack, for all that he said he hated about what I was doing, he was watching the television show, the newscast, and the first rule of doing a newscast is if you can't get anybody to watch it, it didn't really happen. This was more or less when Andy Lack explained, and I think perhaps this is the starting point when we began to move to this guardrail, proving itself to be made out of oatmeal and paper mache. He did not say in the explicit way that I would have liked him to say it, that we are about to go to hell in a handbasket, but in retrospect, it's pretty clear he said it in this opaque way. This was the moment that Andy Lack, who explained that whatever we did, we could not have me come back and do political commentary about Donald Trump. He said, he knew what America wanted for news in the years 2015, 16, 17, and into the 2020s. He knew what America truly wanted, that the tide had turned, that the yelling was over, that the acrimony was at an end, that what America wanted for news from MSNBC was the New York Times of cable.
Mm.
I am only glad in retrospect that he did not say the Washington Post of cable.
Thank you guys for coming in. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the visit. See you tomorrow morning. Oh yeah. And if you get a chance, I'm gonna do dinner. So go and hit up my upload. It'll be later this evening. Thank you very much. Bye bye.